when I couldn't do anything to bring back the heartbeat of my son. And now I was with people, highly corrupted individuals. They were putting together business deals financed by taxpayers. And some of these business deals could end up literally by killing people, starting with children. And these children had a heartbeat. And in my heart and soul, knowing that this heartbeat could stop because of these individuals, my mission was clear. Philippe, you're going to gather all the governmental intel, and the day you're ready, the day you have the elements, then you're going to make that difference. It took me 25 years in the making still today. Today, I own the 4 largest databanks in the whole world. I purchased the last ones on September 20th, 2021. My mission is very clear and very simple. I'm not looking for any conflict. This is a mission of God. This is a mission of love, to bring love, peace, and justice, starting with the children of the world.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. My name is Justus Smith, coming to you live from our headquarters studios in Oro Valley. This is Proverbs Media Group, and today we're hosting a very special guest. I'd like to introduce to you all Philippe Argillier.
Thank you very much. I can tell you have some French notion. The way you said
yes.
Argillier, it's perfect. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Very nice being with you people. Very nice.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to have you here. I want to provide our viewers a little background into who you are before we get started. Philippe Argillier is a French billionaire and owner of the 4 largest and most extensive databanks in the world, containing highly sensitive information on global political and economic affairs. He asserts that these databanks expose the existence of a shadow government influencing international events. He also claims that since 2001, his company has amassed highly sensitive material in these databanks, which he believes can aid the global population. And with that being said, let's go ahead and get started chronologically. Let's take a little trip back into history. I understand that your grandfather was a World War II hero. Could we start there?
Yes, starting with my grandfather indeed. What a man. He was the head of the police at the time, and he was the very first one to be informed via the Gestapo which Jewish family would be arrested in the next few hours. So at the time, the country was under German occupation. So he was getting the list of these families, and the next thing he was doing in the hours ahead, he was bringing fake IDs to these Jewish family, as well as sometimes weapons, and warn them, and sometimes even hide these families at his own residence in order to save numerous Jewish families. And we found out really what he did. He was a true hero because no one knew pretty much what was happening at the time. The day he died, we were a church, and when the church was over and the people were leaving, and we noticed that most of the people in church were Jewish, and it was pretty much surprising for us because up to our knowledge, we didn't even know that he had Jewish friends. And all the people came to see my mother and thanked and said, listen, if we're here today, it's thanks to your father. And we found out what he did during the war. And then I can speak about my father. There was also a true hero. He was the youngest lieutenant to have joined General de Gaulle during the Second World War. And after he became the president of the Free French Forces. So literally, he helped you American people to come that night in Normandy, because in order for the American to come to France to save our country, they needed internal information, pretty much Databank information, things that no one knew. And so these individuals, the resistance, were able to give this information at the perfect day, perfect time. And so he contributed to free our country. So starting with my grandfather, my father, definitely in my DNA, I have this to help and bring justice to all, definitely. Thank you for asking these questions.
Absolutely. I mean, your family has such an illustrious background, and I thank your family for everything they've done in the global fight for freedom. It's tremendous, absolutely tremendous work.
Definitely, and I just want to add one more thing, that my
Sure.
father helped also from the 1980s to basically the 15 years to build the south of France with my unofficial godfather, because my official godfather was my grandfather. My unofficial godfather was the mayor of Nice, Jacques Médecin, very well known dynasty family, and both families, the Argillier family and the Médecin family, literally built the south of France, what it is today. I mean, when you land on Airport 2, it's thanks to my family and Médecin's family. So quite a dynasty, and I'm very proud of it, because most important was the incentive. What they were doing was right. What they were doing was for justice, certainly for God and for love.
Amen. Yeah, that is absolutely beautiful. I love the testimony. I want to take us a little further down the timeline. Let's go to the beginning of your career, a young man in his 20s. I understand that you were buying restaurants and nightclubs, and you were moving up in the world. You were driving Bentleys. Tell me about this period of your life.
Yeah, well, it started at 16 years old. I'm into martial arts. I train karate. I actually train my own bodyguards. I practice a style called Shotokan, and I belong to the JKA, the Japan Karate Association. So at 16 years old of age, I put 3 karate clubs in the south of France, and I had already, I was promoting karate. Obviously, I had teachers, but it was more on the business side. I said it would be nice to have 3 clubs. Then I love nightlife, and at 20 plus, I decided to move to Belgium. Nightlife was very important in Belgium, and very quickly, I built the largest nightclub called the Empire at the time, and I owned 3 restaurants. So indeed, late 20s, I was at the top, thinking that I knew it all. Unfortunately, I was quite arrogant, I must say, at the time, but you're learning, right? And I thought that I owned the whole world. I was on the top of my discotheques and nightclubs and restaurants. But then the whole thing came to a point where I had to make a decision, because back to Jacques Médecin, a very well-known mayor. As I said, his father was also the mayor of Nice for many, many years, altogether 60 years between the father and the son. So as you can imagine, the French government at the time decided to start rumors about Jacques Médecin, saying that he laundered money from the people from Nice. And because we were so close, Jacques didn't have any son. And the people thought that actually he was my uncle. And the next thing you knew, when he started having problem with the French law, they wanted to know where all this money was coming from. When to begin with, I came from a wealthy family, but they tried to get me, even though I was very young, late 20s, in some kind of a scam with my unofficial godfather. There was more like a father's figure. So I was able to clarify all this. But this became such a problem for him that he decided to leave France, and he sought political asylum in Argentina, where his good friend President Menem was living. So he resided there. And myself, I was very affected seeing what was going on. I had tremendous respect for Jacques. And when he flew France, I didn't feel comfortable being in Europe. And so I decided to make an offer to him. And since I was a little boy, I was able to witness a business deal was happening at the level of a city hall. My godfather was the first one to bring private equity investors with the cities. So I called Jacques and I said, why don't we do at a bigger scale what you did in the south of France? to develop tourism. You're in South America, there are beautiful coasts, and why don't we do this? And this time I would get involved with my own money. And he came back and he said, how much money you want to put? And I said, you know what? I believe so strongly that we're going to make such beautiful resorts. I will sell everything I own and I will put 80% of my net assets. He said, give me 3 days. Call me back and say, we're moving on. And in basically 3 years, we built the 2 largest resorts in South America. And this is where it all started, actually. And at the time, I had many partners. And one of them knew me as a newborn, was an older man, and he has a very close friend. He was the president of a small African country. And this president witnessed the performance, how good I was in business and developing tourism. Basically, he wanted me to help him develop his own resorts in his country. So I received a phone call from one of his representatives. He was an actual consul, and a meeting took place in Hôtel de Paris at the time. And I met with this man, and it was a very odd meeting. For the very first time, I was really dealing with a governmental official. He was a big man, and it was a big scene. There was something that was quite amusing. You know, Hôtel de Paris, there is Place de Casino, where you have most Rolls-Royce and Bentley, Ferraris. And he came with driving a Smart, you know, the small little car. Uh-huh. But on his license plate was green. It was diplomatic license plate. And out of this car stood a man. He was about 6'6". He was weighing 240 kilos, which is about 550 pounds. He was dressed in a black robe. He was a white man, very impressive. And me, I was in my suite. And one of my bodyguards brought him to my suite. And thank God I had a large suite with large sofas, because the regular chair I couldn't have sat. So he sat down and we talked about a few minutes about the weather, Monaco. And then I said, okay, so what is the purpose of this meeting? And this is where was my very first encounter with unofficial governmental activities. Out of his robe, he took one piece of paper, handwritten, and he said, this is what we'd want you to do in our country. So I read that page, and I could see they wanted me to develop tourism, but I could see also there was something else. And that something else were basically the structure, the offshore structure that I had built in order to do business in South America. The president of that country was very interested in my structure. So at that time I said, listen, best would be for me to review what I can do for your country. So I will say we will meet next week, and then I will do a counter offer. In all honesty, I didn't want to have anything to do with this country. Why? Because everything that I do, not being arrogant, I'm the very best. I'm an expert. So I was not an expert in government, and I didn't want, even though the small experience I had in the past, witnessing how business was happening in city halls, I couldn't take this arrogance on the governmental level. So what I did back, I wrote the second page, handwritten, with everything that would make them say, there is no way in the world we can work with you. Because I didn't want to do really this work. I didn't feel comfortable with it because I didn't have the knowledge. So the meeting took place the following week. He came, and I handed him 2 pages, handwritten. And he said, ooh, you're learning very quickly, Mr. Argillier. I said, why? He said, well, we're getting a second page from you, and it's handwritten. So he said, I'm going to read it. And in front of me, he's reading the second page, and indeed, could not work. What I was asking was so outrageous. Basically, I had put on the second page everything for them to say, we cannot work with you. And that's what he said. He said, unfortunately, this is not going to happen. You're asking way too much. So maybe we can see how we can negotiate. And this is when I say there is no negotiation. I've never negotiated in my life. Why? When you negotiate somewhere, somehow, you're not as strong. When you know what you're doing, there is no negotiation because you're the very best at it. You are the expert. So people definitely needs your expertise. No negotiation. I said, listen, the only thing I can tell you, I was tell your president that I was very honored to be chosen to help him. But as you can see, I have no knowledge whatsoever about governmental procedure because apparently what I'm asking is so not right. That means we cannot do anything together. At the same time, it was a pleasure to meet with you. And this is where he said, let's call the president. And I said, call your president? And he said, yes. I said, with all due respect, if you make that phone call, I don't want to witness that phone call, so go in a hallway. He lasted about 20 minutes. And I was asking via radio, my bodyguard said, what is he doing? He said, well, he's talking to someone in the hallway. And then he came back, thinking myself, he was all over with a huge smile, and he said, congratulations, Mr. Argillier. We're moving forward. I said, are you moving forward? And he said, yes. I said, with my second page? He said, yes, you have a deal. I have a deal now. So what is the next step? What I had to do in the next 14 months to get everything I needed to have as the sufficient knowledge to be able to be at the level I was expected to be. So it took us basically more than a year to finally, I did sign my first governmental contract on May 30th, 2001. And at the time, I was renting the biggest hotel. It was called Palais Materling, where I was hosting official governmental delegation in order to move forward with a new contract. May 30th, 2001, September 11th, 2001. Boom. No word to describe how dramatic it was. And myself, in the back of my head, I said, maybe my country somewhere, somehow, is it going to get involved? Maybe in the pre-September 11th? I had no idea. But what I found out, September 12th, there was no more phone calls from this delegation. When prior to September 11th, almost on a daily basis, we were speaking, meeting people, silence, total silence, up to the end of October. It's a long time. Then around October 16th, 17th, I received a phone call and they said, Mr. Argillier, we need to meet with you. So they flew a delegation and they said, listen, we're going to have to work with the pre-September 11th, and you're going to have to, in our territory, negotiate a territory because U.S. troops will be sent by the end of November 2001. Don't ask any questions. This is what you need to do at this moment, and make sure that you can secure with the people from the region on our behalf where those U.S. troops can come. It was very clear, very, very clear that my country at the time was indeed directly linked to the pre-September 11th. What happened then, and this is where it all started, group like the Carlyle Group, I'm sure that you heard in the United States of America, at the time the president was Frank Carlucci. And from, I would say, November 2001 to March 2003, when Bush decided to declare the war of Iraq, we were right in the midst of conducting activities on behalf of my government that was directly linked to Western governments, very official, and preparing, working some oil deal with Iraq before even that the war started. And this is where I decided, because all this meeting took place on a very unofficial status, when to begin with, the people we were dealing with were very official. So at the time I had an idea, and I said, why don't we build a databank? And the president said, what is a databank, Mr. Argillier? And I said, well, the way I see this databank is very simple. We are with you, next to you, conducting these meetings behind the scenes. But these meetings are very official, but we intend to keep them very unofficial for obvious reasons. But on these meetings, nothing is being recorded, nothing is being filed. When you have official meetings, everything is out there. You have the press, you have the assistant, you have the consultant, the advisors. Here, it's within four walls. And I said, I feel very uncomfortable, Mr. President, because one day, what you are doing within those four walls can turn against you personally, against your family, and third, against your country. Why do I list this? Because in Africa, on the continent of Africa, very unfortunately, most presidents, it's number one priority, then you have the family of the president, and then you have the country. And he said, that is a good idea, actually, Philippe. He said, but what we want with this Databank is to have the full management of it. And obviously, I was perfectly okay with it, knowing that within a few months after the first Databank would be created, they will come back to me because they had no knowledge whatsoever how to deal with this. You know, African presidents are different than Western presidents. It's a different world, different universe. Unfortunately, the continent of Africa has been bought by Western countries. And this is something that definitely I'm going to make a big change. Going back to the first Databank, I had the approval of the government. Everything was done in the most legitimate way. And the first Databank was created on November 8, 2001. But all of it financed by taxpayers. And I felt very uncomfortable, most on my consciousness, because very clearly I was moving into a new direction in my life. If you looked at my life, on December 14, 1999, I lost my son at birth, Christophe. I almost lost my wife. And at the time, I was a very tiny, small billionaire. I was worth 1.2 billion. And I thought, at the time, even more arrogant, at the time I had discotheques and nightclubs, that I was the big, mighty one. And I learned very quickly that I was just a nobody, a simple man who had lost my son. And despite my wealth, despite my arrogance, nothing I could have done. This was my first lesson of God. God at that point came to me very clearly and said, Philippe, one day you'll do your mission, but you're going to have to change. I'm not saying that Christophe died for the purpose of my mission, but definitely Christophe is behind all this. Then I had the miracle of birth of my first daughter and my second daughter. So now back to my first Databank. As you can imagine, when I couldn't do anything to bring back the heartbeat of my son, and now I was with people, highly corrupted individuals. They were putting together business deals financed by taxpayers, and some of these business deals could end up literally by killing people, starting with children. And these children had a heartbeat. And in my heart and soul, knowing that this heartbeat could stop because of these individuals, my mission was clear. Philippe, you're going to gather all the governmental intel, and the day you're ready, the day you have the elements, then you're going to make that difference. It took me 25 years in the making still today. Today, I own the 4 largest databanks in the whole world. I purchased the last ones on September 20th, 2021. My mission is very clear and very simple. I'm not looking for any conflict. This is a mission of God. This is a mission of love, to bring love, peace, and justice, starting with the children of the world. It's not my agenda. Me, I'm just a disciple of God. And whatever people might think about this, I don't really care, because I only have one thing to do, is to secure the heartbeat of all the children of the world, and then to secure the heartbeat of all the adults of the world. And today I have the elements to do so. And this is a message that I'm sending again to your president, Mr. Donald Trump. For the past 2 years, he's known about Philippe Argillier, and he's heard about our databanks. And I want to make this very clear to your audience, that my 4 databanks have helped tremendously, has enabled President Trump to become president. I made a very big invitation to him for the past 2 years. Actually, at the time, I even got hold of Marla Maples, close friend of mine, that's his ex-wife, and I told her at the time that it was important for me to meet with him, not on a personal agenda, knowing that this man is not part of the shadow government, but definitely is missing the elements to move forward against what you refer to your country, the deep state. As consultant, we refer as the shadow government. Marla met with him, nothing happened. With Mr. Trump, President Trump, the problem he has is his immediate entourage. The invitation I made 2 years ago stands strong. The ball is in his court. We do not need him to move forward with our agenda. He needs us to move forward with his agenda in order to take down the same people who took him down. He doesn't have the elements. We do have these elements. The ball is in his court.
Wow. Historically, whenever there is a revolution, like the Peasants' Revolt or the French Revolution, it's typically one elite replacing another elite. And there's a threshold of tyranny that the people or the proletariat or working class are willing to put up with until there's usually one of these uprisings. And today I think we're seeing one of those things playing out all around the world, and it's mostly been sparked by the initiative of Donald Trump and how his influence on the Western world influences other countries' governance. So what we're seeing right now is a super elite coming in and actually gutting out our intelligence community, gutting out our spending, revealing all of the vermins that have been hiding under these deep swamp logs, these deep state people. You refer to it as a shadow government. So understanding that you have 4 of the largest databanks. In America, we have something like the CIA. In the UK, they have the MI6. In France, I understand you have the DGSE. Do you do any work with them? Because I understand they're the world leaders when it comes to data collection.
Far from it. Far from it. We have no relationship whatsoever with them. And that's very surprising, actually. You name a few of them, indeed CIA, FBI, even your country, Pentagon, and so forth. Our data banks are owned solely through, to begin with, Philippe Argillier and few investors. We have no relationship whatsoever. Actually, the intel we have, they don't have it. Surprisingly, we have intels on them, and that's, I would say, and I'm sure the new one heading the CIA, he just got appointed.
Are you referring to Kash Patel of the FBI that wrote Government Gangsters?
Yes.
Yeah. I think he wrote a book about deep state.
That's right.
If he hears me today, I strongly invite him to meet with me, and he may learn elements about what the deep state is all about, with all due respect. And to answer your questions, yeah, we do not have any relationship whatsoever, and that's perfectly fine. We're not looking for any conflict. But at the same time, they won't be able to move forward in the right direction without our, let's put it this way, blessings. And there is no an inch of arrogance. It's very simple. You have the elements or you don't have them. What is very, to be straightforward with you, I have a huge questions that I'm asking myself on a daily basis. How come they didn't see it coming that 25 years ago, a private entity with few advisors decided to build these data banks, and they were informed of it. And they not once they thought that maybe one day our knowledge would be sufficient to actually level with them, and even on a higher scale, because most of the intel they have are very much put together on a very official status. Over 90% of our intel have been filed on unofficial status. And I can say loud and clear to your audience today that your life and their life are not conducted via individuals that you elect. Definitely, and I'm confirming this, that the ensemble globally of the geopolitical in the world is conducted behind the scenes through extremely powerful individuals who actually have a hand of the people who are elected and carry the official status. Starting with my own country, Emmanuel Macron. For us, he is not a president, he is someone that works for the shadow government. And I'm saying this, I'm at this moment saying in this most beautiful suite in Paris, I'm a few meters from where he is. He knows exactly what I'm talking about. The huge problem these people have is not knowing what our agenda will be. Because our agenda is very clear to begin with, as I said from the very beginning, there will be no conflict. But there is only one mission that we are focusing on, that is to bring justice on the name of God, on the name of love, and no entity and no individuals will interfere with this, because interfering with my mission is somehow interfering with my son Christophe. This is a personal mission of mine. So I'm not making a business deal here. I don't want anything in return except to be able to bring transparency to over 8 billion people on earth, and to make them understand that there is something else that is being financed through them that is not okay, including the war of Iraq. So, again, we're not starting any conflict. The ball is in their court. They will have to decide whether or not they move along with this mission, and if they do not, future will tell.
Absolutely.
And this is not a threat. I'm not threatening anyone. I'm just want to bring people to a level of consciousness, basically an awakening of consciousness, that today there is an entity that actually is stronger than any government, that is not here to bring conflict, but is here to make them go towards the right direction. We're not looking to disclose any of our intel unless we have to. So the message is very clear. Let's work together. Let's unite in the name of God, in the name of love, in the name of the children of the world, in the name of justice. Then we can work together.
Wow. I commend your mission. You having access and ownership of the 4 largest databanks in the world that is not connected to an intelligence community, have full ability to disclose it to whom you please, and you have chosen to team with the right people who are fighting for God, who are fighting for freedom and transparency. I want to know more about the actual operatives within this deep state shadow government. Without having to name names, what kind of people are these? Is this the global bankers? What kind of bureaucrats are these? Are these shadow oligarchs? What businesses are they in? Have they infiltrated medicine, media? What are they and how are they operating? What does their operation look like?
You know most of them. It could be in very high finance. It could be some are actually presidents, but working for the shadow government. It's okay. I'm going to make an easier answer. Obviously, today, I can't really go into more of the intelligence of what we own. On the other hand, I'm doing something very official, very transparent, even though you followed Databank's activities starting in 2016 with the Panama Papers, Paradise Paper, LuxLeaks, SwissLeaks. We're no whistleblowers. That's totally different. We're not a Snowden. We're not a Julian Assange that actually worked first as a whistleblower and then decided to set up his own entity called WikiLeaks. He ended up, you know where. We're not whistleblowers. We're databanks. We own the information. Now, if we make the information available to whistleblowers, that's our decision. But we do not ever divulge information. It's exactly like a bank. You own gold. Then gold needs to go to a different bank. Then you have people with a truck coming and getting the gold from the bank. Databanks is the same principle. We own the intel, and if we decide that the intel is to go out, the databanks is not taking this intel out. A whistleblower will do it. That's just for you to understand more the reason why I spoke about the Panama Papers. I built a government called RDH, Rassemblement des Droits de l'Homme, that anyone can have more information if they go on www.humanrightsunity.com. It's basically the translation of what we're doing. Why a government? That was back in 2015. This RDH has the same structure of a government waiting to be elected. And that's waiting to be elected goes directly to May 2027, where I will make myself available to the French citizens to take over the country as their president. I'm not a politician. I'm a man of vision. And so far, Emmanuel Macron did all he took, and he was very successful, to censor RDH since the Yellow Jacket back in 2018. I am the most censored individual in the history of my country, where actually strict orders were given to journalists to never, ever have Mr. Argillier on any national news. And it's fine. That's their little war. And obviously, they're at that level. We're right here with God. So as you can imagine, they're trying to censor us, and we're perfectly fine. On the other hand, the reason today I'm okay to have done starting interviews, starting with Epoch, yourself today, and others. I have a lot of different interviews in the United States of America. Why? Because I love to begin with America. My wife is American. My 2 children are American. Myself, I was an American resident. And I absolutely love the way Americans think, the way Americans move forward with life. Very powerful country. The problem is extremely limited because of government status. Right now with Donald Trump, there is a huge mega opening. At the same time, the association with Elon Musk overseas, we consider as consultants that many mistakes are being done while we speak. Basically, in 2026, the French citizen will be very informed about who we are, the history of what we've done. And basically, we will let them know that we are willing to answer the call. I am willing to answer the call as the head of state, not even for 5 years. The presidential mandate is 5 years. Will only be for 3 years. I only need 3 years to be able to bring back justice at the government level. This is where I will bring my 4 databanks to the French government only under my supervision as president. And at the same time, I will enable the United States of America to have access to those 4 databanks. So with the US and France, within a matter of 2-3 years, we will definitely, on an official status, take down the deep state, because Donald Trump is not part of the shadow government. That's the only reason we had backed him up for his election. I'm not saying that I'm sharing his political views or anything else, even though he's a very tenacious, strong man, and I admire him on many, many aspects. On certain things, I give him a thumb up. On other things, I think he should bring down a little bit the way the U.S. is being put out there. I don't like arrogance, and sometimes the message is very clear that he gives. To me, is not in alignment with human rights and humility, and that's my belief. But at the same time, I know that I can team up with him in the most powerful way. If I were to become the president of my country in May 2027, he'll still be president for 16 months. So again, I invite Mr. Trump now, while we're in the making of the Databanks heading to May 2027, to meet with me. And with him, we'll be able to get to May 2027, not limited to France. As I said, it is almost a joint venture with your country and France, where we will be able at that time to literally have all the elements on a very official status without creating any conflict, any war, to once and for all take down the deep state in order for justice to prevail. So that's the agenda.
Absolutely.
And I believe in true democracy. And the reason I said 3 years is that I will give the French citizen the authority to decide whether or not they want to keep going with me as their president. This means there will be a referendum after my 3rd year, and they will decide whether or not they want still me to be at the head of government for the next 2 years. Because I believe true democracy definitely lies in the voice of people. And that's why I believe it's such an arrogance to say, I can stay for the next 5 years, because many presidents, most of them make promises. How many keep their promises? So if you really want to install true democracy, if people believe they elected the right person, they have to have the opportunity after 2 or 3 years to decide whether or not this man has done the good work, if it was fake promises or not. So that is a true sign of my transparency without any personal agenda, that what I'm doing, yes, indeed, is to be able to bring my 4 databanks to May 2027. I'm trying to give you a very long story, very short to your audience. And obviously, it's as far as questions, and I'm sure there will be many people who may have a lot of questions. Just know I will always be at their disposal to answer their questions, because my mission, again, is to answer their call and to bring for these individuals justice that they deserve.
Certainly. Again, I really do commend what you're doing, a mission of transparency to help liberate the minds of the French people, help the American people, and ultimately help the entire world fight this cultural Marxism and these deep state entities and agents who have taken over in the world and are influencing global events that are affecting all of us, that are resulting in wars that have no purpose, that are resulting in pandemics, that are resulting in over-surveilling of our people. I want to go back and really dial in on the threat that the American people face and that ultimately every person on this planet faces. I want to really address the problem of the deep state and why these people are so dangerous. If they were only anonymous government officials who are doing their job, no big deal. But the problem is that there's an intersection between the criminal underground, human trafficking, drug trafficking, warmongering, and the government. None of these things are facilitated necessarily by private entities and criminal cartels. There is a strong intersection between the two. Could you elaborate on the relationship between the criminal underground and these deep state or even banking entities?
Well, I don't really need to elaborate too much on it, because for us, the criminal that you are referring to definitely are linked to the deep state. I see these individuals as criminal, as simple as this. Again, keep in mind, and that's the most important about Philippe Argillier, and I want to make sure that people really understand who I am and what I'm doing here. And that's the most important message of all. I do not have a personal agenda. I'm here because I have a mission to complete. I'm actually channeled to do this mission. Now, whether or not you believe that I'm the chosen one, I don't really care, because no one, anybody, as I said, will interfere. So, yes, indeed, I am confirming, at least from my own perspective, the criminals you're referring to are directly linked to the deep state. You referred it also as an agenda. COVID, 2020. I can say very openly and in full transparency, because we do have the elements, that back in 2015, we were approached by two governments. And what they wanted from us, since we were not limited to consultant, we've helped them putting their structure together. We were informed that there would be, back in actually November 2014, we were already informed there would be a global event that will take place in 2020, that they would be directly linked to the Bill Gates Foundation work on the continent of Africa. I decided myself not to want to have anything to do with it. They came twice to me and said, could you help us put this global event together? You don't know anything that in 2020, this global event would have been called COVID-19. On the other hand, we elected 3 consultants who work. Do databanks have this information, this intel? There's an answer out there. If people are smart, they'll read between the lines. What I'm saying is, even COVID was a global event. There was planned. I'm not someone that says this and to want to. I own databanks. I own intel. It's very simple. We do have the elements to prove and to show it. On the other hand, these elements will be allocated to a government, not to an individual. And it happened to be the French government, and the French citizen then will have to make the right decision, because saying yes to Philippe Argillier would be saying yes to transparency, because the 4 databanks will then be fully accessible to the French government and to the American government. And let me tell you how far I suffered the censorship. And I need to say this because today, if your audience will go on Philippe Argillier, French Google, and they will see things that is so despicable. You need to know that the French government tried to bring information about me, saying that I stole the name Argillier, that I was not the son of Le Commandant Argillier, that my wife was not my wife, that my children were not my children, that I was basically a homeless. They came to the south of France and one day was walking in the street of Nice and saw a big sign, my father's sign, which is like there is a big intersections of all cars, and it's called Carrefour of the Commandant Argillier. And I found out that the Commandant Argillier was a respectful man. So what I did, I stole his name. And I was a gardener working for the RDH headquarters. And the few live streams that I was doing, I was making people believe that I was the president of RDH, when to begin with I was a gardener working for €7 an hour. This is how far they went on me. He took 11 lawsuits, 5 lawyers. I won all of them. They even try to humiliate my own children. I stood so strong. At one point, my wife and my 2 children came to see me and said, Papa, stop. This is too much. And I said, listen, in the name of God, I cannot do it. This is my mission. This is the price we're going to have to pay, and I'm so sorry. But one day justice will prevail. They try everything, and they even invited people to go to the City Hall of Nice because they would not find any birth certificate of Philippe Argillier. This is how disgusting, how low the French government, what they did in order to censor Philippe Argillier. More important to say that he's a con man, that nothing he says is real. Actually, it's not even his name. This is how far I was attacked. And right now I'm sending a message to this president of Google, this Indian man. If he's still president, or if he's still heading Google on May 2027, he's going to have to answer questions to billions of people. Because, and this is a personal message I'm addressing to him, if he has enabled his network to butcher the way he did Philippe Argillier, he has no business whatsoever being this president, or whoever the hell he is, as the head of Google. And people like this will have to pay the consequences, as answer the consequences of their actions, because censoring Philippe Argillier is censoring the freedom and the security of the people. And that's a big warning. It's not a threat. But all of these individuals are part of our databanks. And one day, when I will choose, these databanks will be out there. Unless they decide to move forward towards the right direction. So, food for thoughts.
Philippe, what you are doing for the world is absolutely tremendous. You have my support completely, and here at Proverbs Media Group, a company that represents faith, family, and freedom, and giving the truth to the people, unwaveringly being bold and not being afraid to put the real truth out there, we like to give a platform to people like yourself who are fighting the good fight for the Lord, for God, and I hope that we can be of assistance to you in any way. And on a side note, I hope to come to France one day and maybe we can hang out. I'm sure you know all the good places.
You know what? You're more than welcome. You, your people. I want to thank you and also Epoch and all of you that is, it's courageous to have Philippe Argillier on your channel. Even though Philippe Argillier very soon is going to hit the big channels. Hear me well. But to begin with, you are with me at this moment. And I want to thank you in the name of God because you have the courage to say, okay, we're going to put Philippe Argillier now, and we're going to hear what he has to say. And that's a big bravo. And from the bottom of my heart, I want to thank you and your team to do so.
Thank you so much. Philippe, before we come to a close, I want to mention something really interesting that I read about you in your bio. I understand Michael Jackson had reached out to you at some point and you were going to purchase Neverland?
Oh, yes. Beautiful
you gotta explain that.
Beautiful story. You know what? The Michael Jackson file is part of a Databank. And very, when the timing is right, Prince, Blanket, and Paris I'll meet with them. It was very simple. Back in 2008, I owned a very large program called APS, Affinity Payment Services, that was linked to a credit card program and full transparency for the children of the world. And at that time, one of the godfathers of my older daughter is a very famous, very well-known man in America, helping people with their consciousness and so forth. And Michael was in very bad shape. So the godfather of my daughter was flying every week to Las Vegas to meet with Michael and help him. And Michael Michael found out they own that program, and he found out that the Michael was the godfather of my daughter. So the next thing I knew, the Michael, the godfather of my daughter, called me when he was back in LA, and he said, listen, Michael Jackson wants to talk to you, wants to see you. And at the time, I said to Michael, the godfather, listen, tell him that I love his music, but there is no way in the world I can meet with him on a APS program because he was linked with all the lawsuits that he had, the children, pedophilia, and so forth. And the children, and the program was about the children of the world. So even though I didn't know the man, but on a strategic level, it was not a good idea. So I said, please tell Michael that I love his music, but there is no way in the world I can meet with him. Send a message to Michael Jackson, and the next thing you knew, Michael, the godfather, called back and said, listen, Michael took it really wrong. He said, God, I can't meet anyone in the world. I've met queens, kings, and Philippe Argillier doesn't want to meet with me. No, tell him I want to talk to him. I want to see him. So I said to Michael, the godfather, tell him that I cannot. Third week, he came back. I said, you know what? Give him my phone number. Next thing I knew, I was driving on the, I can't tell you the street, Rodeo Drive, Beverly Hills. I was in the back of my car, and then telephone. And it's a private ID, caller. You don't know who's calling, but most of my calls anyway are like this. So I say, hello, and I hear, hello. Oh! I said, Michael, how are you? And he said, oh, Mr. Argillier, I'm so happy to speak to you. Oh. And I said, okay, wait a minute, Michael. I told my security guard, let me out of the car. He spoke to me for 40 minutes. I couldn't say a word. He kept thanking me for the work that I was doing. And ended up by saying, listen, can we meet? Please. And at the time, I was actually, in the next, days ahead, we were going to Las Vegas because we were celebrating the 3rd birthday of my youngest daughter. And we were going to the Bellagio Hotel. And I said, listen, Michael, you know what? Let's meet. But, there is a big but. I understand you have a lot of problem when there are a lot of people in one room. I have a very big entourage. At the time, traveling to Bellagio Hotel is 4 vehicles, 12 bodyguards. It's like official head of state. Unofficial still, but very official style, the way I conduct the activities. He said, it's okay. I have a large entourage too. I said, beautiful. But I said, where are you staying? And he said, I'm staying at the Palm Hotel. And I said, I'm staying at the Bellagio. I said, you know what? Let's go to the Palm. So basically, he had the largest suite at the Palm, and myself, I booked all the suites on the penthouse where his suite was. And he all started, and that day, I finally said, okay, we're going to meet. And I had my bodyguards. I said, no, I want to be alone. And so I knocked on his door, waited 1 minute, no one was coming, and knocked on again. And I thought that maybe there would be someone, an intermediary, that will take me to Michael Jackson. The next thing I know, the door opened, and what I see is a man with his pajamas, backing up, and being like, being in the army. He was standing straight up, and next to him there was Paris prints and blanket. And there was about a few meters separating us, and me, I was with my suit. And I said, give me a hug. So he went, gave me a hug, and the next thing we knew, I could see he was uncomfortable, and he told the children right away, well, leave us alone. I'm going to be with Mr. Argillier. So he's taking me to the big living room, and there was a big sofa, big. And he said, you can sit here. And the next thing I know, he's sitting at the end of the sofa. We need like a radio to talk to each other. And here we have like meters separating us, and big silence. And here I am saying, exactly sitting like this, and he's saying like this. It was his body language, like this. And then he says, you have beautiful shoes. And I said, oh, thank you. The next thing he said, you have a beautiful suit. I said, okay, thank you. I said, well, coming from you, I take it as a compliment. And the next thing I say to him, I said, because seeing that there was not really any communication that was done, I said, I love one of your songs very much, Michael, and it's called Make a Change. And this is where it all started with Michael Jackson. And he said, Make a Change? I don't remember that song. And then I became a little bit angry because I said, Michael, Make a Change. It's one of your biggest hits. Keep in mind, I'm here sitting in front of Michael Jackson at the same time. My friends have Stevie Wonder, presidents, and okay, I'm sitting in front of Michael Jackson, but sitting in front of Philippe Argillier. I said, Make a Change. And he said, I don't remember. I said, well, it's very simple. I'm going to call my wife. She's a few meters. She's an incredible artist. She's going to sing the song to you. So here he comes, rushing and getting the portable phone. And now he's getting a phone. And he's sitting next to me right here. And so now I'm sitting here. Michael Jackson, his knees is actually touching my knee. And he said, call your wife. So I'm calling my wife. And the next thing I know, I have Elizabeth, my wife, on the phone. And I said, Elizabeth, can you please sing Make a Change to Michael Jackson? And my wife starts singing Man in a Mirror. And I thought, that the title of the song was not Man in a Mirror, but at the end he said, Make a Change. And he goes, Man in a Mirror. He gives me a big hug, and he said, Philippe, I could have called him the song Man in a Mirror. At that moment, twin brothers. He takes me by the hand. He said, I want to talk to you. He sat down and he said, Philippe, I am in danger. Can you please, I don't know the man. He's known me through Michael Beckwith. He said, can you please secure my children? I am in danger. They're going to kill me. I said, what are you talking? He said, there is a man called Dr. Tomei. He's my business advisor. Can you please help me, please? I have Michael Jackson. I'm just seeing him for a few minutes. He's like telling me things like I've been his best friend, his brother. And I said, wait a minute. Your children are in danger. I need to understand what is going on. And actually, I'm here because I know you are in financial distress. I want to buy from you the Bills Library because I had secured at the time 350 million euros to buy the Bills Library because we had a high interest on this and to help him. And he said, I cannot sell it to you. Sony has it. I had a collateral, and all the people around me, basically I'm bankrupt. I have nothing. And then I said, okay, how about Neverland? I'm going to buy Neverland. And he says, you cannot buy Neverland. Thomas Barak is like a Lebanese billionaire, just bought it. There was a deal with Dr. Tomei and Thomas Barak. I said, you know what? I'm going to talk to Barak. I'm going to buy Neverland. And what we're going to do, you're going to be part of my program, because at that point I felt like he was a twin brother, because he says at that moment, Philippe, I'm committing to you for the APS program. I'll do 10 concerts. I need time to get ready. We will call Oprah, because I am the one who built Oprah. When I said, okay, you can do the interview at Neverland. So she owes me a big one. And I promise you, Philippe, I will write a better song than Man in a Mirror, 1,000 times better for your program. I said, Michael, it's done. I said, I immediately called my people, said, get a hold of Thomas Barak. We're going to buy Neverland. At the same time, we become twin brothers. We go out together. Not me and him. Our children. My children are being put makeup. Our bodyguards take our children out. At the same time, we spend time with him. My wife, myself, and him alone. He's telling us everything. How he was hurt by his father. How they basically brought him to bankruptcy, his entourage. How crazy this whole thing is. And the only thing he said to me, I want to be known as no longer the king of pop, music, but really an advocate for the children of the world. And you're the only one who can help me with this. So here I am. I am not known at all from anyone in the world, sitting in front of the most famous pop star in the world, asking me if I will be okay to hold his hand in front of the press to say that, yes, he's moving forward with the APS program. Basically, we work a deal together. Twin. But he said, just make sure to answer at least the call one time of Dr. Tomei. And I said, fine. Go back to LA, fly back to Las Vegas, spend Easter together, the family. I mean, we are like, honestly, preparing the move to Neverland. Supposed to meet Thomas Barak. And yes, I hear that Thomas Barak is driving from Santa Barbara to meet with me in my estate. At the time, it's called Angelo Crest Estate, mega estate, top of Beverly Hills, because he heard that Philippe Argillier wanted to meet with him, and he heard about the family, knew about Philippe Argillier, but really wanted to meet with him. So here I am now in my estate with Thomas Barak, and I said, okay, you happen to just bought Neverland. He said, yes. I said, I want to buy it back from you. He said, it's not for sale. Huh? I said, okay, it's not for sale. Why is this not for sale? You just had to deal with Dr. Tomei against Michael Jackson's will. What is this deal? He said, no, right now it's not for sale, but maybe one day. I said, okay, maybe one day. Call back Michael Jackson, let him know we're going to work on Neverland, don't worry. And the same night, listen well, his advisors, Dr. Tomei, called my advisors in Luxembourg and said, listen, it's very simple. If Mr. Argillier wants to have Michael Jackson, it's going to cost him $20 million. Here I was now, being blackmailed by Hollywood, paid $20 million to give to Dr. Tomei in order to have Michael Jackson, because at the time, Dr. Tomei is working with AAG, Randy Phillips, to secure a deal with Michael Jackson for 10, 20 concerts that was supposed to take care in London. And Dr. Tomei was working on both AG, Randy Phillips, and Philippe Argillier. When Michael Jackson didn't want to have anything to do with AG, wanted to have everything to do with me and my program. Basically what they did, because I refused to move forward with Dr. Tomei, I just had once him on the phone, and he said to me, Mr. Argillier, let me tell you one thing about Michael Jackson that you don't know. The day you'll sign your contract, you will not see his hand. You will see my hand on the top of his hand, and I will be the one signing the contract. And I said, listen, Dr. Tomei, I don't even know what you're saying here. I can tell you for a fact that if I sign with Michael Jackson, it would be with Michael Jackson and nobody else, because at this moment, it's like a twin brother, so do not interfere with anything. Long story short, I didn't pay the $20 million. The next thing I knew is that he signed with AG Randy Phillips. A few weeks after that, his nanny, the nanny who took care of the children, came 3 times to church of the godfather of my daughter, saying the following message. Michael is crying every night. He wants to talk to Philippe, but there is no way he can do it. So please tell Philippe that when he can, he will. He doesn't want to have anything to do with AG. He wants everything to do, but they actually stole him from you. That was her exact wordings. Next thing I know, Michael Jackson dies, and he's not finished. Then his brothers, his sisters, LaToya calls. And then the next thing I know, I want to talk to you, Philippe. They came to my estate. Michael Jackson Trust came to my estate. We have everything on file, everything. John McClane, everybody, they tried to get money out of me now that he was dead in order still to have his name appearing on the credit card. LaToya Jackson tried to sell the estate Neverland to me when she didn't have anything, actually. And she even said, Philippe, do you have $30 million in cash? Right now, I can sell half of Neverland. I wanted to see how far this whole family was going, how far they were. I said, you know what? Come back next week. You'll have the 30 million. And actually, at the time, I can even say the name of the firm. It's Arnold and Porter, very well-known firm in the United States of America. Actually, they are consulting for the American government that actually proved that indeed I had the money. When she came that night, I said, okay, you have the 30 million. So knowing that she didn't have anything. And she said, well, I didn't know you were moving that fast. And just to show you how this whole thing about Michael Jackson. What I know about Michael is that I made a commitment to him. Thank God his children are okay. But I have a moral legacy that I will give only to the children when the timing will be right. But I can tell you for a fact, if I wanted at this moment to relaunch the Michael Jackson saga, I have elements, writing documents, that indeed he didn't want to have anything to do with A.G. Randy Phillips, that he was a hostage from all of these individuals. And the reason I can freely speak about this, because I made a commitment to him and I kept this commitment. And anyone who will say that this didn't take place, that would be a big problem, because obviously as Databanks we have the elements to show it. So yes, incredible story about Michael, and we wanted to do what we had planned is to actually move the two families to Neverland to get him ready, because he was very weak. He was eating bad food. He was feeding his children candies. My wife is extraordinary when it comes to the proper food and so forth. We had a beautiful agenda. The two families, the Argillier and the Jackson family. And what I wanted to do, I had a gift for him, where the day that the APS would have been out, is to give him back the keys of Neverland for free as a gift. That was my intention. It didn't happen, but I will be more than happy to sit down with Prince, with Blanket, with Paris. We've known each other. We played together. I actually bought Prince many helicopters that we flew RC, in backyard of his father's estate in Las Vegas. Yes, beautiful story, indeed. Beautiful story. So I'm not here to judge. I wasn't there. Whatever accusation was done but he was free from any accusation that I know. And what I can tell you is that the way he spoke about children was genuine. And indeed, my intention was to buy back the estate and to give him back afterwards, to thank him to be part of the program. Unfortunately, it didn't happen, but what did happen, did happen. That's the story about Michael.
Philippe, I gotta say, you might be the most interesting person I've ever talked to. Your story is incredible. I want to thank you again for coming on our show. I have a million more questions for you that I can't field right now, and I hope we can do a part 2 and dive deeper.
Can I add one more thing?
Of course.
My meeting with the Dalai Lama.
Oh, the Dalai Lama. Yeah, please.
That was absolutely spectacular.
I would love to know.
Because, at the time, Obama was going and trying to, he was elected president. And I met the Dalai Lama because his prime minister, Sandom Rinpoche, thought it would be a good idea, because it was all about love, peace, and justice, and the children of the world, the program. And when I met with him, he was in Aspen, Colorado. And that was put together on a very official status from my end and from his end. And almost same encounter as Michael Jackson. I was behind the door. I was escorted. And the next thing I know, the one who opens the door is the Dalai Lama. And I'm here standing in front of him, like with Michael, and I say, "Oh, give me a hug." So here I am. But you're not supposed to touch the Dalai Lama. But I give him a hug. And he gives me a hug, and then he sits down. And now we are sitting like presidents, the two seats and all the entourage. And the Dalai Lama, like Michael Jackson, keeps saying to me how incredible my journey is about the transparency, the love, the program. And he said he wants to be part of it. And I said, "Oh, that's extraordinary." And he said, "Please speak to my prime minister." The meeting took 45 minutes. We had the most beautiful encounter. And I don't even know if I can say what he told me about him and his position, but he's very human. That's all I can say. He doesn't think he's God. That's all I can say. But, and the next thing I know, I'm inviting Samdom Rinpoche for 4 days to stay at my estate in Beverly Hills. And I had sufficient elements at the time, hear me well, to bring him back to China through my databanks. Enough elements. So here I'm writing to the Tibetan government in Dharamsala, India, because they're not really an official government. They're no longer in Tibet. And to give them all the specifics that they can actually go back to Tibet, to where they flew. They couldn't stay anymore. That actually he left in 1959. Actually, I was born in 1959. 2 days ago, it was my birthday, by the way, on March 13.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
So what I was saying is that, so I had the elements. So here I am. All this is in writing. And that if people are very interested, when the timing is right, all this can come out. I had sufficient element for the Dalai Lama to go back to where he belonged. I received a phone call from the Obama administration. I'm sure this man is still, he may be hearing me now. His name is Mr. Green. And Mr. Green, when you spoke to me, you told me that was a very bad idea what I was doing with the Dalai Lama because it was going against the interest of the United States and China. And I answered you that my interest was to bring back justice, and I had no interest in any economical status of anything. It was about my heart and soul. And he said to me, I remember, because I did arrange to have the Dalai Lama on unofficial status to have tea with Michelle and Barack Obama at the White House. And he said, but I don't think you can come to the White House, Mr. Argillier. And I said, with all due respect, let me tell you, I have no interest whatsoever to come to the White House. I'm sitting at Angelo Crest Estate, and I can tell you that the tea that I'm drinking here is much better than yours. On the other hand, tell your president that if he's sitting in front of the Dalai Lama, it's thanks to my doing. On this, you have a beautiful day, Mr. Green. And I have elements. I have letters from Mr. Green. Letters from Mr. Green telling me that this was not a good idea. Surprisingly speaking, on behalf of an official government, they're writing to the one who owns Databanks that it's not a good idea to bring justice and peace to the people of the world. So, again, love is and God is. That's all I have to say.
Amen.
But, amen.
Philippe.
A beautiful encounter with the Dalai Lama.
Philippe, it has been an absolute pleasure to speak with you. Thank you so much for coming on our show, and I hope to speak to you again soon.
Very much so, and you're a good man.
Thank you very much.
You have a good heart. I can see that.
It takes one to know one, brother.